lassies. All right, there we go. So, welcome to another edition, St. Patrick's edition of the Big Dig Live. I'm your host, Michael Stewart, with my co host, Lamar Miller, Tyler West, and our special guest tonight, the Wizard. We're glad you're back.
Good to be here.
Yep. And Tyler, we're glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Lamar. I don't know. Anyway. So anyway, we just thought we would kind of get into the festive spirit of the celebration of St. Patrick's Day. And tonight we're going to do kind of a rundown, I guess, of what St. Patrick's Day is all about. The truth. There'll be some truth in there, but there'll also be some myths and legends and so forth. And but I just thought it'd be fun to talk about that a little bit because the Irish have made a lot of impact in our society, and we'll get into that a little bit too. But first, we'll just do a little coffee talk right now. So I will start out with the Wizard right now. So if you might as well just put you right up there on the just hit you in the head with the shillelagh or whatever it is.
Okay.
So Jonathan, what you been into? How you been doing? I know you got your own thing going. We're glad you're able to pop in with us tonight. But go ahead and just give us an update on you.
Well, been good, but as always, I've been doing 70 different things at the same time.
Right.
But got some couple big things that happened. I do have a published magazine now. If you all like scary horror video games and puzzles and things like that, I do have a magazine for that. I'm not going to plug it here because it's kind of off topic and everything. But if you all do like that, you can find me at GP Reads, and we'll go from there. It's GPREEDS, and then I'll go to the magazine stuff from there. But yeah, life's been good as far as that goes. I did have to change jobs recently, so there's been a little bit of chaos there, learning new things. It's been kind of this crazy big lead up to today. Honestly, I'm off today, so finally get to relax and celebrate with the Irish, not Irish person right there that claims to be only Scottish, but I know there's Irish in there. I'm sorry.
There's a little bit in there. I see that sometimes, unfortunately, with my temper. But it is. But it is what it is. But the Scottish guy, it's like the Scottish got tempers too. So it's like, my goodness, I can't win for losing, But anywho, so Lamar, how about you, brother? But back up, Wizard. We're glad you are with us, and thanks for coming in and sitting in with us on this one.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Lamar, go ahead. About how was your week? What you been into? Those things.
Had a good week. Went to a conference in Louisville this week for education technology. Learned a lot of stuff. Learned that I didn't know a lot of stuff, and so there's lots of stuff I gotta work on when I get back to work tomorrow morning.
Is that Kisti?
Yeah, Kisti.
Where are they holding it now?
Is at the Kentucky International Conference Center. Is our first year back there. We used to be there years ago, and then we went to the Galt House for several years. Now we're back at the KICC.
Very cool.
Gotcha. Tyler, what about you, man?
Fairly uneventful week. Nothing really much going on from that perspective. I am having my taxes done tomorrow, so that's going to be a fun day. Yay. So I've been spending part of the day getting my stuff together for that. So, but outside of that, my brother, who has actually joined us a couple of times over the several months. Yeah. Today's his birthday. He was actually born on St. Patrick's Day. My brother Aaron.
Yeah, happy birthday,
so
Aaron!
Shout out to him.
Absolutely. Yeah, and this day, my mom informed me this morning, was when she went into labor with me, because my birthday is Wednesday. So, shout out to Mom. Thanks for the hard work there. Appreciate it. And
there.
For sure.
Let's see here.
Let's see, Monday.
That's a long labor.
That's a long labor.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, she's telling me some of the story, and
did you come out full sized?
I told her. She said, she said something off the wall. She always puts up with or something, and I said, "Wouldn't you like to have me now at this size?" She's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
but no, but there's a lot of birthdays in the month of March around our family and different different ones and connections and so forth. So
My younger brother, his birthday was yesterday.
yeah, and I got a dear friend that her name is Jawanda Coleman, and Jawanda. She's an African American friend of ours that she's a good singer and so forth. And she and I share the same birthday.
Oh,
So
cool.
we were brother and sister from she calls my brother from another mother, type thing going on there. But yeah, so let's do a shout out real quick to the people who are in. Anna Eileen's watching. So hey, Anna Eileen, my mom, of course, hey there, and Miranda as well. So hey there, Miranda, who's probably in the next room. But hey, I appreciate. And those are others that come popping in and so forth. We are getting a lot of views on Facebook, and so Facebook's been a good source, and we'll continue to do that as well. So let's see here. The Big Dig Live is on Facebook, YouTube, and now Spotify. We have the Spotify up and running, and those are out for podcasts. I guess you call that a podcast. I don't know what you call a podcast. Jonathan, or you could probably tell us what is a podcast versus what are we doing here? I don't know what that's called.
Radio show versus a talk show is what we're doing. This is a talk show where you can actually see the people speaking. You get interaction with the face and backgrounds, all the little animations you do, stuff like that. Podcast, like I said, it's just a radio show.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, there you go.
No visual.
We've got both platforms kind of rolling. So, so hopefully in time as it grows, we'll get more people connected in there. But also just a reminder to hit that like button, notification bell, follow button, subscribe button, and go over on rumble.com at Big Dig 5 for our archive, because we put these shows up so you can go back and watch or listen to them at a later point. But having said that, so glad everybody's here. Like I said, some of this stuff now, some of this stuff's going to come off because it's, I don't know.
He's choking to death.
Yeah. But I like the fedora. I can kind of hang on to a little bit. It's not too bad.
It's nice.
So here in a minute, when I get somebody else talking, I'm probably going to shed some of this stuff. But I have my lovely wife. Now, Mom, don't get mad because birthday's coming up. But I had her to go get me. I don't know if y'all can see the green in it or not, but she made me just a little punch with some green sherbet and ice cream and ginger ale and so forth. Just to kind of get in the festive spirit. And no, there's nothing in it. Just so before Mom even asks, there's nothing in that. I just can't talk.
She's
All right.
already thinking it.
Oh, she was. So anyway,
well, the way you're talking, I wouldn't.
I know. Learn my
Happy St. Patty's Day.
yeah, happy St. Patty's Day over there. But no, like I said, it's a fun holiday. I've always liked it. There's been a lot of just different little things, and then when you start thinking about the Irish culture, I don't know why, but I've always gravitated to Celtic music. I love Celtic music, and there's a lot of influence in our bluegrass from that, which we'll get into. And there's just a lot of contributions that the Irish have brought into America as immigrants, because this is a country of immigrants, and so we'll get into some of that. But the first thing I want to do is hand off to Tyler, and we're going to kind of get a backstory of who St. Patrick was and was not. I guess we'll say it like that, or however we want to say that, just to kind of get an understanding of where all this comes from, And so, Tyler, the floor is yours while I create something where I can breathe again.
So St. Patrick is, what this day centers around. There is a lot of myth, a lot of speculation. There's unfortunately, not a lot of historical evidence. So his life is surrounded really with a bunch of question marks, but there are a few things that we do know about him. So first of all, he was a 5th century missionary and bishop in Ireland. He's oftentimes called the Apostle of Ireland. From the standpoint of, his engagement in Ireland, he was the first bishop of Armagh, This is some city in Ireland at that point in time. It's Northern Ireland, and he was considered the primate of Ireland. He is generally credited for bringing Christianity to Ireland, but we actually know that that's not entirely true. We do know that there were Christian influences in Ireland before he came. However, in terms of the spread of Christianity through Ireland, he was primarily responsible for that, especially Western and Northern Ireland. So those earlier ones, even though there was Christian presence there, they did not achieve the level of success, if you will, that St. Patrick did. So according to his, it's kind of an autobiographical writing that he did called Confessio. There's actually only 2 pieces of literature that survive today that actually reference St. Patrick in any detail, and unfortunately, both of them were written by him. So there's no actual, outside historical evidence. But according to his autobiography, he was captured by Irish pirates from his home in Britain, or what was, basically what today we call Great Britain. We don't know if he was in the Scottish or, what part of that he was in. Nobody really knows where he's from. But he's not originally Irish. So some people may not even know that.
Right.
But he was about 16, according to this, and he was taken as a slave by pirates. And then this is right around the end of Roman rule in Britain. So, the kind of the concept is, with the Romans kind of pulling out, that there wasn't as much protection. And so these pirates had a heyday. So he worked for 6 years as an animal herder, finally escaped and returned to his family back in, Britain, what we know of that time. He does credit his captivity for being critical to his spiritual development. He became a cleric, and then he returned to spread Christianity in Northern and Western Ireland. Later in his life, he became a bishop, but little is known of this time period. However, by the 7th century, he was basically revered as the patron saint of Ireland. So call it 200 years later, and he's basically considered the patron saint of Ireland. Couple of legends associated with him, and they are truly legends because there's no real historical fact around either of these. We'll talk a little bit about the clover later. I know Michael's got some things to talk about regarding the clover, but in particular, the legend is he used the 3-leaf clover as part of his evangelism to teach the locals about the Trinity. So he used the 3 leaves and being part of one plant. Probably the most spectacular one that people talk about is that St. Patrick is credited for having banished all the snakes from Ireland, which is complete horse hockey.
Yeah.
So, the fact of the matter is Ireland was already known for being a place that was pretty much devoid of snakes. So, they just somehow attribute it to him. Or some people may be trying to draw a spiritual analogy to with the spread of Christianity, him, driving out the devil or the serpent, and some kind of analogy with that. So the Feast of St. Patrick, or St. Patrick's Day, is basically held on the traditional death date. Now, we don't really know when he was born. We don't really know when he died, but that is the traditional death date of St. Patrick, is March the 17th. And it was made an official Christian feast day many, many years after, many centuries after. But it does commemorate St. Patrick and the arrival of Christianity in Ireland. By extension, the heritage and the culture that we're going to talk about.
Sure.
One of the interesting things about it is, St. Patrick's Day is really well known for lots of excessive drinking. Surprise, surprise. And apparently that's probably from when they did that, because this St. Patrick's Day falls right in the middle of Lent.
Mhm.
And so there are restrictions on eating and drinking alcohol. And so for St. Patrick's Day, for a feast day, they raised those restrictions in the middle of Lent. And so that's probably why the consumption of alcohol became so popular
Yeah.
on this day.
Mhm.
And obviously it's come to the excess that it has. But again, a lot of what we know about St. Patrick is honestly much speculation. Again, we don't have good historical information.
You know, and I was, you were talking about the drinking and so forth. I noticed that, you know, I scroll through YouTube, live YouTubes, to see what's out there, what's happening at the moment, whatever. And they had a parade in New York City. They had a parade in Chicago. They turned the river green up there, I think in Chicago. What was interesting here locally, and my kids, Miranda and them went to, they turned the river at Lost River down there at the cave. They turned it green today and tomorrow. So it's kind of, it was just something to see, you know, and so forth. But, you know, as we've said, there's a lot of contributions that St. Patrick's Day, the Irish, all this rolled into one has brought up different little aspects of in our society, you know. Now how I've done this is, and I did this purposefully, is because I know there's going to be some discussion on this, but you know, when I think of the St. Patrick's Day celebration, I do think of the four-leaf clover. The clover became associated with the Irish people after the Druids were driven out of Ireland. It is seen as a lucky charm and often carried for protection or worn as a talisman. Now, going back to what you said, there's a little more meaning even with the three-leaf clover because of the Trinity. And let me see something real quick. I'm going to pop this up. I don't know if I put it on there or not. I did not. But there was a picture, and you can go look them up. And if you look up, just type in a Google search, Celtic cross, and you will see a Celtic emblem of the Trinity. And that's it, you know, that the three leaf, if you will. And maybe Lamar, maybe if you can find that and throw it up there somewheres or whatever. Jonathan can't do it no more. He's
Nope.
He just got to float on by with that. But you know, and it's beautiful work. You know, many years ago, we were a part of a group at Hillview, our church, called the High Cross Society, and basically it's those who had interest in Celtic things or their lineage comes from, to some degree, Irish or Scottish. Well, anyway, we got this bright idea to have built I think it was like 12 feet tall? I mean, it was huge. I mean, it was huge. And it took a lot of work, and they hand carved this cross. The knot work and the just all this stuff on there, it was amazing. And I'll have to reach out to my buddy Max, because Max was kind of the spearhead of that. But it was him and some others, Dr. Wilkie, who goes to he goes to Hillview. Different ones were involved in that. I got a chance to, carve a little on it just to be a part of that. Yeah, there you go. And if you can look, like the knot work at the top, but I've seen that's a type of intricacy they did. But there is one there's a three-leaf clover at the bottom there. Okay, so that's a little different. But there's also one with that knot work that they've worked into the clover look as well. And that, but yeah. So I mean, that's something that to me that, yeah. Here we go.
So I couldn't find any with like the clovers in them, but there was several. I mean, there's a lot of them out there on the internet. So
and just think of the work that goes into that, and some may are, but a lot of them have that Trinity aspect to it that I've seen as well. I used to have. I'll have to look maybe in a second. I've actually got a Celtic knot buckle. When I used to dress up in the garb of the kilt and all that stuff, I had a buckle that went on the belt that we had for that. That was a Celtic knot work, but buckle. But anywho, just an amazing thing. And we to finish that story, we would take it to the Highland Games. Of course, a lot of people that would attend the Highland Games, they have no relationship with Jesus. So what we wound up doing is we would get coffin coolers, the big, huge what we call coffin coolers from church, fill them full. We get waters donated. We do a pig roast, and we would feed people and give them water. And they say, I'm thirsty. Oh, go get you water at the foot of the cross. And then that opened right up. Wow, this is a really cool thing you're doing. You get to share about who Jesus is and things like that. And we've seen people come to Christ through it, and it served its time and purpose, at the time. And one of the books, I'll go ahead and say this while I'm talking, and then I'll let y'all take off on the other stuff, is that while we were in that high cross society, if you will, we found this book, and I'll just recommend it for people to kind of just take if you have an interest in that. But it's called The Celtic Ways of Evangelism by George C. Hunter. And that was a book that we read and studied in, and kind of, just to kind of get the understanding. And but it was a really, really good book. As far as me telling you about it, it's been too long since I've read it, but it was a good book. And I remember that part. It was a good book. And there was a lot of good points brought out about the Christian faith and us being bold and sharing our faith and so on. But that might be one for that. So that's the 4-leaf clover and 3-leaf. Does anybody else have a comment on the 4-leaf or 3-leaf clover? Okay. All right. The next one up is the leprechaun. As we always
Leprechaun.
Leprechaun. I tell you, I really, Tyler's, well, he's not that short. So, but if we got him to dye, his beard red and his hair red and put a hat like I got on, or one similar to that, I believe you could pass for one, man. I really do.
The closest I get is eating me Lucky Charms.
Eating your Lucky Charms. See, you saw that if you looked at it, like right here.
I saw it.
We had the Lucky Charms. There's your clovers up there, 4-leaf, okay, and then there's the hat I was telling you about, and the pot of gold, right, and all that. But yeah, so the leprechaun. There's actually a surprising connection between the mythical figures and the history of St. Patrick's Day. The legend dates back farther than the holiday itself. Leprechauns were first written about in old Irish fables, so it makes sense that they'd be associated with a holiday dedicated to Irish culture. And then I'm going to go ahead and read this piece. Supposedly, leprechauns are afraid of 4-leaf clovers. The 4-leaf clovers can nullify the leprechaun's powers, with him being stuck and unable to smash open a crate for 10 years just because a 4-leaf clover was on top of it. Even the mere sight of one frightens him. His power is directly connected to his gold. In Irish folklore, the leprechauns were portrayed as shoe cobblers for other fairies and were paid for their work in gold coins. The legend says that the leprechauns kept their gold hidden, and if a human were to catch a leprechaun, the human could force him to reveal where he hides his pot of gold. Folklore depicts leprechauns as mistrustful creatures who detest humans. According to legend, leprechauns found an abandoned gold and buried it again, so no human could ever find it. The old folk tales tell us that there is a pot of gold hidden where the end of the rainbow touches the earth. Now, I was close to a rainbow touching the earth, and I didn't see nothing, so I'll just let y'all know that's a bunch of hooey. So, any comments on the leprechauns? You're great. Y'all just really got
I'm thinking it, actually.
About leprechauns. So, I mean, you just told me everything I know.
You know what's kind of odd about them, though?
What's that?
If mostly or all demonic entities are fallen angels. It's just I know that cherubims don't look anything like they're depicted, but isn't that funny how cherubims are depicted as little babies, and then leprechauns are kind of like evil little babies? They're like impish.
Yeah.
Leprechaun.
Just an odd parallel, you know?
Yeah.
So the 4-leaf clover is kind of like their kryptonite.
Yeah. Well, it
Yeah.
made me think about vampires too, because it's kind of like a cross shape, and it like negates their powers, so to speak.
Hmm.
It's interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah. Very spiritual undertone, really.
Kryptonite's green too.
It is.
Ooh,
Ah.
I wonder if there's some
Yeah.
connection. We need to go back and
Also, the red hair and the pointy ears makes you think about dragons and dragon hordes collecting gold. I mean, it's all these different mythical things they really connect to, and it's odd. It's like this big mishmash
Yeah.
fey creature. It's weird.
Movie that if you like old movies like Darby O'Gill and the Little People. Y'all ever heard of that one?
Don't know that one.
I think it's an early Lamar. You're our guy digging that type stuff up. I think it had Sean. I think it was an early movie of Sean Connery. And
again.
Whoa.
if I'm saying it right, Darby O'Gill or something like that, and the Little People.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sean Connery, 1959.
1950.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a cool little movie.
I've never heard of it.
It popped up on something the other day, and I said I'll watch it, and I said Jenna, why don't you watch this with me? So she watched about 20 minutes. She said this is boring. I was like, okay, it didn't move fast enough, as kids today or
Yeah.
whatever. But
Yeah.
it's about basically the town drunk who has caught a leprechaun, and there's some deals, and it kind of gets into making a deal with the Grim Reaper, and all this
Another
stuff.
parallel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you
weird.
might want to watch
Sounds
that.
interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool movie, and I remember it back, Jonathan, with your uncle Wally. We watched that together at some point back in the day. But it's a really cool little movie.
It's actually a Disney movie.
Okay, that's my
That sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another really good Irish themed Disney movie. You ever seen Luck of the Irish?
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, you need to see it. Jenna and they'd love that one for sure. It's this kid, he moves into a new town and just kind of an average kid, and then he finds out that his grandpa works at this potato factory and he's owned it, and he finds out he's owned it for hundreds of years. He's like, well, how could this be possible? It's got to be some kind of mistake. And he goes there and he finds out that his grandpa is actually a leprechaun, and he gives him one of his lucky coins by accident. But since he gave away his lucky coin, the luck of their family starts going away and they start becoming leprechauns. They're all shrinking and they get in the pointy ears. It's a really funny movie.
Oh my
It's fun.
goodness.
I
Yeah.
used to watch it every St. Patrick's Day. It's really
Oh
fun.
wow. And there was one. Jonathan, I don't think you remember these things. Maybe you do. But do y'all remember the after school specials?
Oh yeah.
Or was there a weekend special? Maybe. Anyway, there was one in there of those that had it was about a leprechaun.
I don't
But
know.
and then of course there's horror movies right and left about leprechauns.
Yeah.
But when
Well, see, that's what I think of immediately is the Leprechaun series.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm pretty sure Jennifer Aniston was in the first one.
of the
I'm not sure.
Really?
horror movies.
Leprechaun movies. Yeah.
Oh wow. So anyway, there's a lot of you have to understand that the history, if you will, of the Irish people, and a lot of it is based off of myth and legend, and those fables, that were told and passed down from generation to generation, and so on. Let's see. Why is the color green associated with St. Patty's? Now, again, I pull these blurbs off, and knowing that some of it's accurate, some of it's not, because I want to, let the guys bat it around. Initially, blue was associated with St. Patrick. However, the color green became linked to the holiday after the Irish Rebellion in 1798, when the clover and the green uniforms became symbols of nationalism and rebellion against the British. Of course, we know the IRA, which is the Irish Republic Army, I think it's called.
Mhm.
There's a lot of there's a lot of history there. You can look that up online.
I was going to mention that.
Go ahead.
The Troubles from the early 60s through the 90s. When I was a kid, I didn't know all that stuff was going on. But, and we, got to wear green tomorrow so you can get pinched and all that stuff. But they were actually during that time, St. Patrick's Day was really just pushed down to not very important, especially in Northern Ireland. It hasn't been just the past 30 years that it's big again.
Yeah, and there's from what I've understood, there was a lot of oppression in Northern Ireland specifically.
I mean, it was the Protestants versus the Catholics, pretty much.
Yeah, and then when was the potato famine? Was am I in the wrong
Different
framework
period.
I
Different
don't know
period?
what time period that was.
Yeah, and that gets into contributions we'll talk about in a little bit. But go ahead.
There is a little more on the color green. You're right. Basically, you're talking about. See, the color green was associated with Ireland from the 1640s, when the Green Heart flag was used by the Irish Catholic Confederation. But it actually predates that. The first association of the color green with Ireland is from a legend in the 11th century. There's a book, the Book of the Taking of Ireland. It tells of Goidel Glass, or Goidel the Green, the eponymous ancestor of the Gaels and creator of the Goidelic languages. So the Irish, Scottish, Gaelic, and Manx languages.
Yeah.
Goidel is bitten by a venomous snake, but saved from death by Moses placing his staff on the snake bite, leaving him with a green mark. His descendants settle in Ireland, a land free of snakes, which we've already talked about. But that's actually the earliest reference to the color green associated with Ireland.
Gotcha. And now I'm gonna put this. This is my mom's question: are the Irish superstitious? I would say yes, definitely. And I think it comes from the fact of those early centuries where they had Druidism and all kinds of different, very earthy religious groups. They tie everything back into nature. The Druids basically were all about nature. And so, here comes the whole idea of Christianity, which totally, those two clash drastically. But at the same time, like I said, but that's just some of it. I think they're superstitious. It's just, let me read this here. This was the last piece on this is why pinch someone who doesn't wear green. And this is what we got. It said, while Ireland has plenty of folklore and mythology, and underline mythology because that's a whole different ball game in a sense too. Americans are also thought to have come up with the idea that green makes you invisible to leprechauns. According to the tradition, if you're not wearing green and therefore visible to the leprechaun, a leprechaun may wind up pinching you. So that was
for the Americans to come up with that one.
Yeah, way to go, guys.
Well, and I'll take a different stance on that. I think to call them superstitious is really honestly a gross generalization. Because if you step back and think about the way that we look at it today, right, most of what we have attributed to St. Patrick's Day has been attributed apart from Ireland. It's just like you said, what the whole pinching thing, that's an American thing. There's things that we have added on to this thing. And I mean, take into consideration, as I was researching this, did you know that St. Patrick's Day is celebrated in more countries than any other national festival?
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's probably lots of extra cultural things that have been thrown into this bag that we may attribute to the Irish, but in reality, it's just been added on. So I think maybe it's a gross. Are some of them superstitious? I'm sure, but heck, a bunch of Americans are superstitious too.
Oh yeah. Go ask some of these basketball players in the NBA.
I was actually just about to say NCAA. The NCAA tournament's about to start, and I guarantee you there are some guys that are not going to change their socks the whole time. Yeah. Just because of superstition.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, let me. I want to just. I got just a couple more things, and then I'll cut you guys loose to do some whatever. And we are getting into our scripture, so if anybody's worried about that, we'll get there. The Celtic music contribute. There's a lot of contributions to the to music in general, and it comes from. And I'm gonna let Lamar take off on this, but I will say this: one of the songs that we've had the privilege to play and learn and know and worship with, as all of us probably have to some degree, is the song Days of Elijah. And it's written by Robin Mark, and he lives in Northern Ireland. And that come off the album Revival in Belfast. And if I'm not mistaken, Belfast is in Northern Ireland. And there was a great, during that time, I think, there was a great move of God, a revival spirit happening up in those areas. But there's a lot more even than that within the music side. So Lamar, I'll let you take off on that. And
I don't know if you wanted me to.
Well, I mean, you were talking earlier in a sense about bluegrass. You're a bluegrass fan.
Oh yeah, man, I love some bluegrass.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But we
Love me
don't-
some bluegrass.
But we don't have bluegrass without Ireland and Scotland and and so on.
Right, yeah. I mean, a lot of the influences that we don't know are from Ireland, and the only way to find it out is to trace it back.
Yeah. Well, it's like probably the introduction to the fiddle
Right. Yeah.
comes from Ireland,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and then put in the hillbilly into the mountains, and you get what the product of bluegrass.
Yeah. Right.
Jazz has a lot of the same thing, and the reason it does, there's a component of improvisation. When you listen to Celtic music, all right, you listen to whatever, just like this right here. Listen to this section, this real quick. Just keep listening for a second. Now, what you heard there, all this movement, a lot of that is based off of the improvisation aspect of music.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, I'd love to go over to Ireland to an authentic Irish pub and listen to them play, because you have guitarists and you have penny whistle players. And towards the end of that little clip there, you heard penny whistles. You hear the fiddle, and in some cases you can dig deep into that, which I have, and you can hear uilleann pipes. Uilleann pipes come from Ireland, and they're not bagpipes, but they're a cousin to. And they're pumped under the arm. They have a bellow under the arm. A good friend of mine, I might have maybe next year we'll bring him on. Skip Clevenger, who played with Michael W. Smith. He's a bagpipes and penny whistles player, but he plays the uilleann pipes as well. And we had him come to the High Cross Society meeting one time and explain, and you would not believe the intricacy and how much there is to the uilleann pipes. Look them up sometime. If you ever Braveheart, the soundtrack to Braveheart, for the most part, is uilleann pipes in the background. It gives that eerie sound to it and all that. So there's like I said, got a chance to meet Robin Mark. He did a tour a few years ago, and got a chance to sit down with him. I got him to sign a copy of Days of Elijah. And he told, and I don't remember it, but he told me the story about writing that song, and all that. But
cool. I remember a few years ago we went to Dollywood, and during this time they were doing music from all around the world, So, like in this area over here, you'd have some Ecuadorian music, which was really just awesome.
Yep.
And then you'd have, just different kinds. And I remember one of the shows they did were this Irish, that this girl was playing the fiddle and dancing, and they were doing
Jigging. That's what they call
yeah,
jigging.
yeah. And I was just mesmerized. It was just so cool.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't the dulcimer, isn't the roots of the dulcimer from Ireland? I mean, dulcimer is one of my favorite.
I don't know for sure. But I mean, I would say so, probably.
That's one of my favorite instruments. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, might look that up. But they got the dulcimer, you got the uilleann pipes, you got the penny whistles. I play penny whistles, and I play a little bagpipe, but I'm not like Skip Clevenger by any means. But he inspired me, and so I went and bought a whole I don't know what you call it, just different keys, a bunch of them, and I learned my own style. But I can play penny whistles. I played at church before, when we did something with a Celtic number or whatever. And you wouldn't believe how expensive some of those are.
Oh,
Like I have a low D whistle, which is about, it's huge, and it was over $100, and it's called a chieftain. It's made specifically in regards to the chieftains, who are another group out of Ireland. They're not a Christian group; they're just an Irish band or whatever. But
like the hammer dulcimer, which is probably what you're thinking about.
Actually, no, I'm thinking more of the lap dulcimer, four string lap dulcimer, mountain dulcimer.
Yeah, well, those are actually Appalachian. Those are from the United States, but I mean they're kind of
based off a lyre, probably, or
the hammer dulcimer, which is more Scottish than Irish.
Okay.
But it's all in the same wheelhouse. It's in the Emerald Isles, they call it.
Yeah.
I mic'd a bagpipe once.
Oh my gosh!
Talk about a challenge.
And that's how your beard turned gray. I tell you what, you haven't.
It was actually at the Highland Games.
You have not lived until you go to the Highland Games, and you're there for like we were there for hours upon hours, all the way into the night, etc. And you would go home and you would lay down your head, and because all these pipe bands are there for competition, and everywhere you go, you have bagpipers in the woods, and they're warming up and they're in all this stuff. And it just plays over in your head and over and over. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to have a break. But Jonathan, you had something to say. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, you mind if I go back to the dulcimer for a second?
No, right ahead.
I'm actually on dulcimer.net, and it actually has really interesting origins. It's got multiple places of origin, but it says the earliest of the dulcimer has origins in the Near East. So it's actually more of a kind of Asian instrument. Then it says, however, the Appalachian or mountain dulcimer is a uniquely American addition to the fret zither family, invented by Scottish and Irish pioneers who settled in the Appalachian area of North America.
Okay. So there is some Gaelic influence there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's a tie. The bagpipes the same way. There's the Highland bagpipes, of which everybody knows, and sees, right? But there's also some that are made in Turkey and Afghanistan and Pakistan, and they're a little bit different. Yeah. So and Gaelic, I speak one phrase of Gaelic, and it's Kamara Ha'u, and it says, "How are you?" And then the reply to that, "I'm doing fine," or something of that nature, is let's see, Hagamataplet. I learned that. That's about all we learned in the High Cross Society, because it was. But we studied Gaelic for a little bit. But my gosh, it's a hard language, and it's ancient.
Mm-hmm.
No one hardly they hardly speak it, at least in Scotland anymore.
Right.
And I'm not sure about the Irish or whatever. But it's very interesting. Very interesting. What's that dance they do? The Irish dance. Yeah, they got different dances. If it's a jig, what you heard with that music clip is kind of a jig, and it's basically, I think, all in. See, I think it's kind of a 6/8 feel, or 3/4 maybe. Most of it is, and then they've got different. They've got jigs. They've got reels, and a reel is a little different. And you'd have to, we don't have the time to go into that, because I do want us to get to the the Bible study, but a lot of other influences as well that Irish, we joked about it, but the Lucky Charms, you think about that cereal, although it's not Irish per se, but that influence, right?
Mhm.
And then I'm sure
It's
there's
not.
and then you got potatoes, that's, what else we got that's Irish or whatever. I don't know if y'all ever eat steak or kidney pie. That's an Irish thing. Um, I was trying to think what else, but I mean, there's been a lot of influence, and that's what makes to me it's what makes America really cool is and you can drive to Chicago, for instance, and you can go to one part of town and you're in that kind of feel of that the Irish or whatever. You can drive to another and you can be in the German. You can drive to another and you can be in like Chinatown up there. Um, with those influences, it's like a little miniature city of these type of things. I know Lamar and we took a trip and we got up into it was in Cincinnati, and the German influence and really good German restaurants, because there was an influx that wound up, I guess, settling in that area.
Right.
So when you get into the music side of it, and of course I can run off at the mouth at that because music is so cool, but a lot of the influences that we have, there's just a lot of good songs that come from that Celtic, that Celtic feel. I really enjoy those. So anything else you got, guys? I mean, that's been pretty cool. There's a lot of competitions too, as far as the dance goes and stuff like that. You can go to I can only speak for the Scottish because that's, I'm not, but they've got Highland, they call it Highland dancing. And then they got Scottish step dancing, things like that. But you'd see these young girls come out there dressed in their tartans and so forth, and they give them music, and they're dance. If you've seen Riverdance was a big thing.
Mhm.
If you ever got a chance to see Riverdance, it was amazing, and the musicianship there, man, whew, you talking about killer musicians.
I guess one of the challenges I have is maintaining that distinction between what is Scottish and what is Irish.
Mhm.
There are lots of similarities.
Yep.
But then there's still a very clear distinction
Mhm.
between the two. So, I mean, obviously you've been involved in like the Highland Games and everything. I mean, how do you appreciate those similarities while at the same time respecting the distinctiveness of the two cultures?
Yeah, I mean, and I was trying to think back when they did the dancing contest. I was trying to think if it was accurate that it was Highland dancing versus Irish dancing. I don't remember because now the Highland Games itself is, when you look at the Highland Games as a whole when it was going on, was predominantly Scottish.
Mm-hmm.
But when you would go around to the tents, like they had tents where you could buy like colognes or perfumes from imported in, etc. And they would have Irish stuff there, and they would have of course Scottish stuff there. But to me, Scottish music is, of course, I was friends with the guys from at the time it was called Clan and Drummer, and now it's called Albanock, and they're still out there and they're still going. They toured America this past summer, and we'll be back again probably next year. But their music, that brand of music is very tribal. It's a lot of drums and bagpipes more than anything else. Then you have the Scottish rock bands, such as one band that used to be called Seven Nations, that would come to the Highland Games a lot. What made them rock, Scottish rock, was basically either singing about drinking or singing about something like that. but having bagpipes, and they'd have a full rock band sound to it. You know, a lot of stuff was in that 6/8 feel, same as the Irish. Um, you know, when I think Irish, I think more fiddle dominant, penny whistle dominant, versus Scottish.
Yeah, I can see that.
Maybe not as much.
I
More
honestly feel like Irish music has a little more energy to it in general.
can.
Yeah, I mean there are slow Irish songs, but
Sure.
you know, typically I feel like they just seem to have a little more energy or joy or
Yeah.
exuberance to them.
Well, I'll give you one song that's transcended both genres, or both countries, if you will. Whiskey in a Jar.
Yeah.
It's a big one for both of them. Whiskey in a Jar. I've heard that played, you know, and you know, Metallica even did a version of that one.
Oh
you know?
yeah.
But you know, there. When I hear Scottish music, I hear stories, historical. So in some cases, stories about. I'll give you an example. In the movie We Were Soldiers, American movie, at the very end of the movie, as the credits are rolling, there is a song called it starts out and it says, "Lay me down in the cold, cold ground." I know the guy who sang that song. He was in Clan and Drummer. And they were actually in the movie of I think it was Braveheart. They were in as extras in the movie, sword fighters and all this stuff. But just that song is written in honor of his. I think it was one of his relatives who was in the Seaforth Highlanders regimental group, military. And so I hear that a lot within the Scottish, their stories. With the Irish, I hear more celebratory, you know, oh no, the prank, or whatever, you know, it's almost like I almost set in that Irish pub. However, then you get to two songs, "Oh Danny Boy." You know, if you go back and you look at the lyric of "Oh Danny Boy," or you know, "Sweet Bonnie Lass," you know, a lot of things interchange. The Gaelic is very close for both the ancient languages. You know, there's a term that's used, like they say cheers. All right, well their term is slante, and that just means cheers, and it kind of transcends Irish and Scottish.
Okay.
You know, so there's a lot of crossover because they're basically, you know, they're just a few hundred. I don't know how many miles, but I mean, there's not that lot of difference, really.
Right.
And then you got Wales, which is a whole different story.
Right.
That being said, we're almost to an hour. So,
well, that was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of
it
fun.
was.
I hope everybody enjoyed it. You know, I had said we'll do 19, but you know, that's the name of it sometimes. But I think there's a lot to be pulled from this. What I would say to you in regards to where we're going from here, number one, we are not forgetting Acts. Acts 19 is a, as my mom said, there's a lot in there to her, and so I have, you know, challenged everybody to read up on that. I also shared with you we'd be doing this type of show tonight, and we would see where we get. And I was hoping to get to the word, but this week, you know, just we look at it a little bit different. You know, like I said, I want to have variety shows, but here's what's coming up. So next week, as we celebrate at our church, not all churches do this, but we do. We celebrate Holy Week. So what I would say to you, Tyler, can you give a brief overview of kind of what don't get into the details, but just say, you know, how, because some churches don't even celebrate Holy Week. Okay.
Great.
So just kind of give the bullet points and what we're going to try to do next week.
We're going to do a whirlwind tour of the Holy Week, basically from the point that Jesus and his disciples enter Jerusalem for that last week of his life, the celebration of the Passover, all the way up to his death and resurrection. And we're obviously we can't cover everything in great detail. As I was telling the guys earlier, almost half of the Gospel of John is dedicated to Holy Week. So there's no way that we could cover it in any kind of great detail, but we are going to take all four Gospels and kind of put together some of the events that happened, some of the key teachings, some of the key events, and just kind of line it up and go, okay, day one, here's what happened, day two, day three, so on and so forth, and just kind of line it up. Obviously some things happen, that are more written on about certain days than others. For example, obviously the day of the Passover itself, or I'm sorry, the day of the Last Supper. There's distinction there that's got to be made. But day of the Last Supper, the day of his crucifixion, day of his resurrection, those are jam-packed days full of lots of detail. Whereas, say, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of that week, yes, there were things going on. He was teaching in the temple, but not quite the detail of activity that we had on other days. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting, something that's going to be challenging to do because of the amount of content. But we're going to do the best we can to just kind of give it, lay it all out in about 1 hour from Sunday to Sunday.
And that second Sunday, yeah, boy, as
Yeah.
we get into the resurrection, and that's what it's all about. Without the resurrection, man, the rest is pointless.
Yeah.
Dying on the cross would have been pointless at that point, because the resurrection is where he overcomes victory. He has victory over death, and that's how we have our victory.
Right.
Is through that. So that's coming up. Get ready for that. We will bring back Acts chapter 19, so you could have plenty of time to read up, study up on it. We will be off the weekend, the Sunday that is Easter, because I want everybody to have time to spend time with family. That's part of the thing that we do there. But that next week we'll be back into Acts 19. I apologize to everyone for saying we was going to get to the word, because I thought for sure we would in this one, but at the same time, I think sometimes it's good to take a step back and to kind of to look, and irregardless, that there has to be a bravery, as I've always said, we've been challenging one another to be bold, and think about, as we've been reading about with the disciples and on their journey, going to these towns and having this mob of people trying to tear down everything they're trying to do in the name of Christ. Here's another, the contributions of St. Patrick, if you will, to the faith. I stand amazed at those guys and gals, that if they could have the bravery and the boldness and the steadfastness to press on when times are difficult, very difficult, and they keep pressing on. And that, I think that's what God's trying to speak to us through our Bible study, but through our church, that's what we're getting a lot, is to press in, be steadfast, and we've got to be the mouthpiece to the world about who Jesus is and what he has done for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Without him, we have no hope. He is the hope,
right?
The living hope. All right, guys, as we wind this up, let's go around. If any final comments or anything about tonight or anything. So we'll start with Lamar on that, and we'll end with Jonathan on that.
I didn't really know a lot about St. Patrick's Day when I started reading about this, and I thought it was really cool how a lot of this was tied into Christianity that I didn't even know. I knew that St. Patrick obviously was a Christian character, if you will. But I didn't realize it was such a large Christian thing, and I thought that was cool to learn.
Mhm.
And just to read more about all the stuff that's happened through history concerning St. Patrick's Day and stuff like that was really cool.
Tyler?
I learned a lot this week as well, just reading up on this. Same thing as Lamar. There are some connections that I did not have that I made this week as I was looking into it. And a few things obviously we didn't cover tonight. I think the most interesting thing is, frankly, how much of it is speculative. I thought that there was a lot more factual historical context, but there just really isn't. And so much of this is based on legend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jonathan, before you give your final comments, go ahead and plug what you want to plug, buddy, because we're here. You have been a help to this show many times over the years. Now we say years now because we've been more than 1 year.
Yeah.
We've been rocking and rolling. But as for people who don't know, in the beginning, Jonathan was the one, as we called him, the wizard, because he was the man behind the curtain who was making it all happen. And he was with us for a good while there, and but yeah, plug what you want to plug, and then your final comments, and we'll get ready to wind this thing up.
I guess the only thing I'll really plug is my YouTube channel. Again, that's GPREEDS. And what I do on there is I do a couple different things. One of the main things I do is the lore of book series, the lore of TV shows, the lore of cartoons. I'll go into their backstories, and I'll actually take pieces from them and what the symbolism in them represents as far as the scripture goes. I'll go into some shows how they'll actually go into true demonology. I'll go into shows how they'll talk about true angelology. I think it's how you pronounce that. The study of angels. And just the how odd the parallels are in these shows. And that kind of actually connects to what we're talking about tonight with the leprechauns and things. How all the world's different the cultures and legends and myths, they all seem to connect to one another. I think that's one of the biggest arguments for Christianity, is the fact that all the things that are taught in the word that comes from Israel and in that area connects and relates to everything else in the world. There's all these legends. There's something similar about them where you can connect the pieces and get that full picture. So it's really neat to see how the word is spread. Even, I mean, of course we need evangelists and everything to go out there and really missionaries really get the word out there, but God is giving signs and everything. His blueprints, his fingerprints are on everything. And I think it really shows even in media and things like that. But
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also it's really interesting that it's the most popular of the Christian-based holidays. I would have thought it would have been Christmas, but I was looking into it too. And even though most countries do celebrate Christmas, even though they'll call it something different, Sinterklaas or whatever, what have you, St. Patrick's Day is almost everywhere. And it's crazy that a Christian story, I mean, it's very Christian fundamental story is the most popular of them.
Yeah, and before I forget, and I said you'd be the final thing, but I want to bring this up. I know it was out. It's going to be out on the 20th and 21st in theaters, but there is a Genesis apologetics movie about. And Lamar, did you got that up there?
I just no, hang on a second.
It was.
I looked it up earlier.
The Ark and the Darkness, I think. But I'll let him make sure he's got this. This is put out, I think, by the same folks who did the Chosen videos, I think.
And it looks like it is going to be showing March the 20th in Bowling Green, Regal, The Great Escape.
Yeah.
I
would say check your local listings of where you're at.
Right, yeah.
I would assume it will probably come out on, like, for those who stream or whatnot at a later point. But go ahead with whatever you got on it.
Well, just a short summary. Noah's Ark withstands a global flood, corroborated by scientific evidence across disciplines. A team exposes the truth behind this ancient tale found in cultures worldwide, confirming the biblical account. So
Oh.
I don't know if it's supposed to be like a movie or if it's supposed to be like documentary.
Yeah, I'm not real sure, but
tell.
it looked very enticing, and I probably will try to. I don't know if I'll be able to get to it this week or not, but I'll be watching for it on streaming or something at some point because I think it'd be a good.
And
good
it's only going to be playing those 2 days.
Yeah,
The 21st.
yeah, but I think they'll run it again. This is kind of my thinking,
Yeah, they might.
But I know it's connected in with the Ark. They did some filming up at the Ark up in northern Kentucky, and then they did some at and I forgot what museum it was, but I don't think it was the Creation Museum, but I think maybe it was a Creation Museum. I don't know. I can't remember. There was a museum attached to that as well, where they got some of these scientists in different things, and they've collaborated together in this endeavor. So you might check that out for anybody that might be into that. What we'll try to do, Lamar, if you've got, did you take down what Jonathan had as his website or YouTube channel, whatever it was?
GP Reads.
Yes.
Okay. And so I'll post
REEDS, GP Reads.
gpreads.com or
No, it's on
Just YouTube.
this channel.
You can find everything else I do from there as far as the magazine goes.
okay, we'll put that
everything
out.
else, it's all from there.
I think my personal Facebook page is tied into my the Big Dig Live page, so I'll be sure to put that out there after the show's over, and we can try to encourage people to come check that out. It sounds very enticing, the things you're talking about. So, but anyway, so let's give a round of applause for our wizard who has stepped back with us. We appreciate you. And thanks everyone for you guys as usual, Lamar and Tyler, for a good show. We hope you've enjoyed it. And like I said, talking about this tonight, again, I apologize for not getting into the scripture, but sometimes we need to take a step back, and there's a lot of things that were learned tonight in regards to this show and St. Patrick's Day and all that. So be in prayer for one another, and we will be checking back with you guys. Like I said, next week, Holy Week Blast. I guess you want to call it that. Holy Week Blast. That will be led by Mr. Tyler down there, and we'll be his loyal minions of however and whatever we need to do in that.
My flunky.
Yeah. So until next time, we will see you next time on the Big Dig Live. Have a great night.